All right, good morning and welcome. Today, today we're going to talk. I got a little story for you. Back in about, I believe, 1983, I had a friend come over. Him and his wife, meet my wife, and he liked music. I liked music, so he came over and we started looking at my music. Now I was pretty excited about my music. I had probably about that time just gotten out of college. 100 maybe 200 vinyl albums. And there was great stuff. I mean, I had some Zeppelin, we had some Floyd in there, Talking Heads were in there. I mean, I had ABBA, which I wasn't too impressed with, but there's a variety of different things that I thought was pretty exciting stuff. So he's sitting there and he's thumbing through my albums, and then he finally looks at me and goes, "Your record collection sucks. You don't have anything good." Now, I mean, what do you say with that? Here's your buddy. He comes over, he looks at your music, and then you find out your music sucks. Well, them are fighting words. I mean, wars have happened in this world on less than that. So what could I do? I was kind of baffled by that. So the next day I went to uh, the local voodoo priestess, and we put a curse on him. And I had something to do with goats, and no matter where in life, there will always be a goat in his yard. She did some kind of curse like that. No, what he said, and his name was Jeff Bigelow, and I lost touch with him, probably because he didn't like my music collection. But Jeff goes, "I'm going to bring you over some record albums, and we're going to listen to these. And this is what real music is all about." So he did. And I want to show you these records. And these were the ones that really, you know what? It did change what I listened to. It kind of blew my mind. I mean, it's funny that I never had heard of any of these, but I was more AM radio, or the FM I listened to was classic rock, which really meant, okay, well, we're going to play the stuff from the 60s, a lot of the hippie stuff, and some of the metal coming out. And I wasn't listening to any stuff of the more what was happening now. So here are the albums. We had this one here, Elvis Costello, Elvis Costello, Elvis Costello. My aim is true. His debut album. You know what's interesting about this is he recorded it in San Francisco, and he didn't do it with the Attractions. His backing band was a band called Clover. And the guy who was, the main man in Clover was none other than Huey Lewis. Yes, sirree. Now, Huey Lewis was not there that day when they recorded this album. I think he was out reading the news or something like that. But that was the band. So he brought this one over and I listened to it. And, Elvis Costello was one of the first very angry men. I mean, this guy was just kind of really pissed off. And he made some great songs. I mean, he was a very, very good songwriter. And so, what made the album really interesting to me was there was a wide variety of music. I mean, you had the softness of Allison on there, but then you get into Mystery Dance, which had that rock and roll type feel, or Welcome to the Working Week. I mean, it was all over the place. Watching the detective, so some was really hard, then there was the middle, and some a little softer. Of course, since he was from Britain, you had to have reggae. I mean, what British punk band didn't ever have reggae? So Elvis Costello, obviously he's still making music to this day. He's done so many different types of things, but his first 4 or 5 albums I have really enjoyed. This one was very interesting to me, and it really got me into Elvis Costello, and I still buy his stuff to this day. Speaking of angry young men, there was 3 angry young men, really, when you look at punk. Elvis Costello, Graham Parker, and then Joe Jackson. All right, there's Joe. He looks angry, doesn't he? I think he was. All right, they're considered really the 3 angry young men. A lot of anger must have came out of England at that time, okay? Was there any angry young Americans, they were all English. Joe Jackson, this was his debut, and Look Sharp. It came out in 1979. And, it's one of those perfect debut albums. Every single song was good. He had the huge hit, Is She Really Going Out With Him, which came off of here. A punk band with a huge hit, kind of weird. At this time, it wasn't punk. New wave is what it would be considered. But there are so many fantastic songs on here. You have Look Sharp, One More Time, Sunday Papers. A lot of it's just about love gone bad. Typical stuff, right? A little reggae sound in here. It's truly almost every song on this is great. And this, a good album you can listen to again and again through the years, and it still sounds fresh. This one does. Again, it's 1979. He also had another one. So Jeff brought me over to Elvis Costello. So in 1979, he also made this one, I'm the Man. Kind of like that one. And pretty neat. Again, this was, it was a follow-up to his other albums when you look at New Wave on here. And the biggest hit to me was I'm the Man. It didn't have anything as big as Is She Really Going Out With Him? But it was another great example of his anger and throwing it out on here. Now, Joe Jackson, when you look at the Three Angry Young Men, Graham Parker, he really stayed with the pub rock kind of stuff. Elvis Costello, we know, went on to a lot of different things. Joe Jackson, he just never really knew what he wanted to do. So, he got tired of this, and so he began to go into jazz, to big band, to soft, to classical. And I appreciate that of Joe Jackson. I bought his stuff throughout the whole, throughout all the years, and I've always liked what he comes up with. But those first two were pretty darn cool. All right, another album Jeff brought me over, Ultravox, okay? And this is Vienna. This was like their third album, I want to say, I think around 1980. Not punk. This is kind of the start of New Romanticism. These guys, you could tell, like Roxy music. But really, they got into the synthesizer. And with this album, Midge Ure, I hope I'm saying that right, Midge Ure, I can't pronounce names very well. He became a part of this. And in England, this actually had three major hits. There was Sleepwalk, Missing Strangers, and All Stood Still. For me, what my favorite song on here was Vienna. And to this day, it's just one of those songs that give me some goosebumps, when they bring out the chorus of Vienna. So, Ultravox, they made a variety of different albums through the 80s. I like this one the very best. Wasn't punk. It was the beginning of New Romanticism, but it had edge to it. All right. Now, believe it or not, I went through college in the late 70s, but I was in Nebraska. And I can't say we knew anything about punk rock. In Nebraska, disco was big in 1979. It was dead on the East Coast. It was dead on the West Coast. And we finally go, what? Disco, hey, and we set up a disco. We had a huge 3-4 discotheque. 1979, dead everywhere else. But we were a little slow on getting that kind of stuff. So my buddy brought me over this album, The Clash. Well, what's this group? Seriously, no idea. 1977 debut. Now, I know in the U.S. they put out in 78, Give 'Em Enough Rope. Then this came out in 1979. Well, this is the UK pressing, and this came out in 1977. And look at that. CBS. Okay. Wow. All right, some more Angry Young Men. These guys are really pissed off. They were mad. This is political, and they really got into the politics, which is, I really liked it. Did I know a lot about English politics? Probably not. But again, it's a debut that everything's great. Everything's still fresh. Joe Strummer and Mick Jones, those guys could write music. Really reggae influenced. everyone in reggae was fun. You always had to have a reggae cover on there. We have, I'm So Bored with the USA, White Riots on here, Career Opportunities, Police and Thieves, very reggae. Uh, Very neat album. It's a classic. I would suspect most people on here have heard this. Unless you don't like punk rock, then you don't want to hear it. If you enjoy it and you have not heard it, then you have to have it. Blew my mind. He brought me over a second Clash, and I was shocked. I don't have this one in vinyl yet. I probably will pretty soon. London Calling. All right. And again, look at that. All right. Part reggae, part rock, punk rock. It was all in this. London Calling, by far, the most famous and still probably one of their signature songs. Clampdown, Guns of Brixton, are all on here. Revolution Rock, Jimmy Jazz, which is a really neat one. I mean, they began to really experiment in this one and start going into a lot of different things, which eventually, formed Sandinista. This was their third. It's after the old Elvis album there. Kind of the cover on there. Very much, considered one of the greatest classics of all time. If you look at top 50 rock albums, that one's always on there. All right, now so let's talk. So punk rock's about anger, right? My buddy Jeff's showing me all this angry stuff. He gives me this. I have not gotten this next one in vinyl. I could probably buy it new, but I'd like to find it used. So actually I found this one on one of my trips to England. Stiff Little Finger. I know we got a sticker up there, okay? And these guys are still performing. They're still out there. This was what they called Ireland's version of the Clash. And I'm telling you, this is still one of my all-time favorites. It was so phenomenally good. Great songs like Suspect Device in here. Barbed Wire Love. Barbed Wire Love. Fantastic. What a great title on there. Alternative Ulster. Breakout. There's even a little reggae in here, of course. Johnny Was. It was good. It was fast. It was very angry. These guys were mad. Now, what set them apart from the Clash is the Clash were better songwriters, and you can hear that. And the Clash began to evolve. These guys have never evolved that much, but it was really. It was great. It was punk rock, and they kind of gone more the pub rock route now. But this debut, and this became actually, I think, of the albums he sent me, one of my favorites. Probably number 3, because the other 2 are still to be showing. All right. Brought me this one. Now, I did a whole video on the Cramps. That's how much this album inspired me. This is the songs the Lord taught us. Jeff loved this album, and I actually love this album because I'm still buying, Cramps vinyl when I find it or on things. This had TV set on there. Garbage Man, I Was a Teenage Werewolf, Mystery Dance. Some of these are covers, rockabilly. These guys were into rockabilly, but they made it psychobilly, and it was fantastic stuff. I'm Cramped. They did, they did Fever, their own version of it. It was Lux Interior, Poison Ivy. They were married. They came out of, actually they started to make their name known in Cleveland. They got up to CBGBs like everyone else. You had Gregory Hawkins here, Nick Knox over here on drums. Gregory Hawkins eventually left and stole all their equipment. These guys went on into the aughts when Lux Interior finally died, and that was the end of the Cramps. But this again was one of those incredible albums that totally changed what I listened to. I never would have found this thing, but Jeff loved this, and I do too. Finally, the one album that blew my mind, and I had heard of this group, but I didn't know anything about it. Sex Pistols. It's 1982, and I just learned about the Sex Pistols. I was a little behind, I guess. Oh, wow. Oh, man. This blew my top. And again, to this day, hey, never mind the Bollocks. There's the Sex Pistols. One of my all-time favorites. It was anger. These guys were mad. It wasn't as political anger as you found off the Clash. These guys were volatile. They blew up. They came to the U.S. 14-day tour. You know, they blew up. In England, they've been outlawed everywhere, banned from playing because of songs like God Save the Queen. But, you know, they have pretty vacant on their Anarchy in the UK. That didn't go over very well on their Holidays in the Sun, Bodies, Submission, EMI. I mean, it is such a phenomenal album. Again, you look at anything of the greatest albums of all time, this baby's on there. I mean, if it doesn't make you want to just get up and, you know, throw adrenaline into your body, you can see why people were pogoing and spitting and all that. Because this album, the music is made to create emotion. It's not a mellow album. You would just want to get up and go, you know what, if you can break something, you can play this and you can start breaking stuff. It's awesome. I mean, it's just made for breaking things. Probably should be, you know, in demolition yards. Required listening. Really, I was shocked, and to this day I love it. You know, one album from them. They have a bunch of other crap that came out after there. Most of it is kind of crap. Nothing can compare to this thing. And again, all-time favorite albums. So Jeff Bigelow gave me these. And it changed. It changed what I bought in music. It's changed how I'd listen to it. Changed what I went after. I still love the pop stuff. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I liked it a lot, but I became big into punk. And what was really neat is, and this came out probably in the 90s, they have this box set, No Thanks, okay? And it's the 70s Punk Rebellion. And I know that's really small, but what was great about this, and I'm going to do a video on some box sets that to me, I found tons and tons of music, and it's helped me explore new areas. This is one of them that did, because it looked at all the 70s punk bands, not just from England, which had tons of them, but also in the United States and in other countries. Wonderful book in here. And so by listening to this, I just began to make a list. Okay, I want to have this. I got to have the Damned. I have to have Pierre Obu. The Stranglers. I need to have them. Reckless Eric. The Modern Lovers. It opened my eyes to many more bands. Oh, it's Upside Down. Wow. Ooh, there you go. And helped me expand to what I listened to. So eventually I'll do another, I want to do a video on a variety of box sets that I have that I think truly helped inspire and help me find new music. So there you have it. That's my Sunday morning video on why my record collection sucked. Really? My record collection sucked. Well, guess what? It don't suck no more because it rocks. It punk rocks. So thank you, Jeff Bigelow, for getting me going in the right direction. Everyone enjoy your day.